anyone goes talking about it or asking, yes, it's as stupid as it looks. But I spent a solid hour or so on it, so I'm not giving up on it. I should probably explain what Red Dragon is, because I realize a lot of people clicking in from this probably has no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So, originally, this was a book published in 1981 written by Thomas Harris. It's detailing the former FBI profiler, Will Graham, who comes out of retirement to find and apprehend an enigmatic serial killer named the Tooth Fairy, who is committing famicidal murders. That's kind of a crappy synopsis, but in simplest term, yes, it's a murder mystery in a lot of senses, but this is also the introduction of Hannibal Lecter. Today what I want to do is I want to break down every adaptation that's made, and the ones that we are going to be judging is the original Manhunter, the very first adaptation of this book, Red Dragon, and Hannibal. Now, the thing with Hannibal is that I'm going to be judging it based off of its last 6 episodes, because those are the episodes that go over the Red Dragon arc and follow the book. Whereas I'm gonna try my best not to pull anything from the rest of the series, even though it may come up in a few points. But, yeah. So we're gonna focus on ranking those and kind of putting them head to head. And here's how we're gonna do it. In front of me, I have a tier list that I made, and this is how we're gonna rank them. So let me go over my lists so it makes sense when I say stuff. At our lowest ranking, I'll have That's It, You're Going in the Soup. This is the worst adaptation possible. This is, how did you fuck this up so badly that it isn't anything like its original? Next we have our It's Not Bad, but wow, it's bad. Is your social worker in that horse? Then our next one, our right in the middle, is Hannibal's Ponytail. It's not terrible, but God, you could do so much better. And just above that, we have Bedelia's Left Leg. It's well done. Like, it's pretty good, but I can think of better. And then our S tier, the Red Dragon painting. This is godlike. So, knowing that, let's get into our first subject. First off, we're going to start with Manhunter, then go on to Red Dragon, and then Hannibal, which is what we're going to do for every other character. Starting with Manhunter, it is the first adaptation. It was done in 1987, I think? Am I right? Should be. This movie, here's what I will say. It screams 80s. It has the most 80s soundtrack, most 80s clothing. It's just the epitome of 80s. It's the height of that. The thing with this movie is that mood-wise, it is very accurate. It's got that very dark, dingy feel to it that really, I think, translated well from the book, because it's supposed to be a murder mystery, because you're trying to track down this murderer. It's gonna have that heavy weight to it. This, it works because you still have those color palettes of really dark, and you're able to still have that feel. For, like, the actual accuracy, a lot of the plot points are pretty good, I'd say, but it starts falling apart by the third act, which I could go on and on and on and on and on about the ending. It's just, they were so close, but the more you ended up watching it, the more it just felt like a loose interpretation rather than an adaptation of the book, so it kind of sucked. But if you're looking at it as a murder mystery, it's good. If you're not trying to connect it to the book or any of its source material, it's pretty good. So for that, Manhunter, I would say, is going in. Is your social worker in that horse? Next up is Red Dragon. Oh dear God. I have so many grievances with this one. It is so bad. By the end of this movie, I had whiplash. It was so fast, and the book is written in a way that it's speedy, but the way it was presented is it was rushed so bad. It doesn't work. And from book to movie, it is very accurate. It is on a good word-to-word base. It does a good job. It has that dinginess to it, which I really appreciate. Other thing is that they actually explain the backstory between Will and Hannibal, because that's kind of big thing that's never really explained in Manhunter, but it's very important that we know those backstories and we know how they're connected. So that's kind of where the compliments end, because it's so poorly done. Everyone's so badly done except Anthony Hopkins. And oh my god, I'm gonna get into this and try to be really fast. The whole thing around the Tooth Fairy killings is that he killed the family, and then he put glass over the eyes and mouth so he could look at himself. It's a whole thing psychologically. But the way this movie did it is that he took the pieces of glass and shoved them underneath the eyelid and put them directly. It's so dumb, because it's like, that means he would have to perfectly cut out the glass, which he doesn't have access to at that point, and carefully shove them under the eyelids without destroying them, and it looks dumb. Because of all of my grievances, that one's going in. That's it. You're going in the soup. It's terrible. Why? Hannibal. Last 6 episodes. We're judging it only on those last 6 episodes. But what I will say is that it's hard to judge because I'm only dealing it on that last 6 episodes, and this is why I'm gonna give it high praise. Because we've had character development, and we know how these character acts and how they've been acting for the past 3 years or so. So it's a bit hard to, because you've been building up to that arc. But it's also really nice because it's a culmination of Manhunter and Red Dragon. It's so great how Brian Fuller was managed to pull different little bits and pieces, and you can see certain lines like, I'll eat your heart out between the fight in Will and Hannibal from Red Dragon, or using the stabbing, put it into Mizumono, which made it one of the best season finales ever. I could just talk about Mizumoto forever, but it drew a lot from the book, and it had a little more quirks and little references, which I always appreciate. I feel like I can't talk about the show without talking about Hanagram, Murder Husbands, whatever you want to call it, but they handled this relationship so well that, oh my god, I'm terrible at explaining this type of things, but they handled it so elegantly, to the point where it made sense, and you're like, wow, I can see that struggle between those two characters trying to figure out their feelings, you know, and I love it. They did such a good job. This one doesn't actually focus a lot on figuring out, it does, but it kind of takes a back seat, it feels like, as compared to furthering the relationship between Hannibal and Will and getting to that final point in Wrath of the Lamb. And speaking of episodes, genius. So each episode is actually named after the original paintings. So like 10 or something like that. Episode 9 was The Great Red Dragon. And then it was the woman clothed with the sun. And the woman clothed, and the woman dressed in the sun. And the Beast of the Sea. And the number of the devil is 666. And then Wrath of the Lambs. But they were named after the original paintings, which I didn't pick up on until I had to do research on that painting. Oh my god, it's so good. But it is another adaptation where you can read it straight from the book and look at it, and you can see a lot of correlation. And also, but that kind of shows why it's so good. It took 6 hours to get the storyline right. Everything else has been rushed, and you'll continue to see that these character development story arcs have been rushed because they didn't have time to develop it. I'm going to put that one in Bedelia's Left Leg. The only reason it's not going in Red Dragon is because a lot of it was skewed, but only because of the way that story was done. But I'm basing this off of accuracy. So it's really, really well done, but it's missing elements. Alright, we're on to Will Graham. Hopefully this doesn't take extremely long, but my notes are, they're fairly long, so let's go. With Manhunter, Will Graham, he's played by William Peterson. Oh my god. Besides Dancy, he's so good. I think it's one of the best roles, and doing up that role, he has this very stoic kind of mysterious vibe around him. He knows when to talk. He's a man of very few words. He knows when his word is useful, but he's a quiet guy. And visually, this is the closest we're gonna get, because he's a beach boy. He lives in Florida with a family, and he has that look about him that works, that he's old, because in the book, Will, he's like 50. This guy, he's been through the ringer, you know? Like, he's been through it. So, like, this is probably the best interpretation of he's just like, ugh, this sucks, you know? He also, despite his very quiet outlook, he's probably the most hardened, and he has the most outbursts. He will change on a dime. He will go off on you. Like, that's just his character, and it's really, it's scary to watch him do it after you've seen this guy who's been so quiet the entire movie just go at it. It's so good. But the only thing with this thing is that there's no mention of his backstory with Hannibal. It's only implied. Which, it kind of sucks, because then it doesn't, it's like, why should we care? You know, it's kind of weird. So, I'm going to put him, we're going to put Peterson in Hannibal's ponytail. He's not terrible. I really like him, but it's like, I think they could have done a bit more with that character, I think. But, that's just me. Red Dragon. No one likes this guy. Every person I've ever talked to about this movie hates Norton. He's terrible. He was it was so bad. Oh my god. No one likes him. He's by far the worst interpretation of Will. Like, the hair, this man looks young. He's so young. You know, like, he's supposed to be 50. He's supposed to be old and tired. This man looks young and fragile. Does that make sense? And he's such a know-it-all. He just sucks up. He's like, I get it. Like, it doesn't work. It also makes it feel like he doesn't know what he's doing. There's nothing to him that makes you go, yes, this man's an FBI profiler. He knows what he's talking about. He knows, he's done this before. There's no indication of that. And it's so bad. He was just so miscast. So, I'm putting Norton in probably, is your social worker in that horse? He's bad. Like, it's like, in terms of things, you could have fucked up more, but, like, he's bad. Well, hey, can we guess who my favorite is and who I'm probably going to talk the most about? Maybe hard to guess. Anyway, so good. So, despite his youngness, even though he's like, I think he's like 40 or so, he fits. He fits. There's just something about him that it's just like, he's obviously jaded. He's obviously tired. He's tired of what he's doing. He's sick of having to reach into that terrible mental state that he's been going through in order to do the rest of these crimes that he had to take a break from. And that's what works. And also, it's because we know what he's been through. It's character development. We have character development with him, but it's just, the poor guy's been through it. He got cut in the skull by Hannibal. He got stabbed. Like, he's been through it. He's gotten everything ripped away from him, and it's just like, my only grievance is, he's not a beach boy. He doesn't live in California or Florida with his family. He lives in a cabin in, like, Canada. Like, come on, man. That's the only problem. And I understand that all of Hannibal was filmed in Canada, but, like, he's a beach boy. That's the thing. He's very tan. Very tan, Will. But it's just, yeah. I think the only thing, my only problem with Will is that a lot of the time there isn't really a feeling of urgency with him. It's very, take your time. Like, he can be urgent when need, but, like, usually he's a very slow-paced guy. But, so good. So for that, I'm gonna put him in, I don't know if this is gonna surprise anyone, probably Red Dragon painting. Only because we have the most character development with him, we understand the most about him, and we understand him. That's what makes him so good. Oh boy. So, this is where I can get into a little bit of hot water. Because I feel like Hannibal, as a character, it's kind of debated who's the best because we have three amazing actors doing this. We have Brian Cox as the original Hannibal Lecter, spelled with a K. We have Anthony Hopkins, who again is amazing, and we have Mads Mikkelsen. How it's extremely hard to pit these three against each other. But we're gonna start with Manhunter. Like I mentioned, this is spelled with a K, Lektor. I personally like him. The accent helps. It adds some kind of regency to him. But in terms of things, he's not very scary, which I think that's kind of a big part of Hannibal. He's a scary dude, but I like him for that, and because he's so normal. We have no idea what he's capable of because we've not been told. We know he's in there for bad things, but we don't know why, and that's what's so terrifying about him. He could do anything. If he were to kill you, how would he act? Like, it's that uneasiness of normality, right? But like, I personally enjoy also Brian's interpretation of the character because he's quick on his toes, you know, their conversation back and forth, it's fast, it's so good, and that's what I also enjoy about that version of their conversation in their meeting, because in my book, in the foreword, Thomas Harriot had mentioned when he was writing, when he described him writing that scene, it was that idea of he was out of breath by the time it was over. It was fast, it was back and forth, you know, and I think they captured that really fast, that really quick, back and forth, it's so good. But I think he's a smooth talker, especially on the phone. Oof! I personally really enjoy him, so I'm gonna put him in Hannibal's ponytail. Like, he's not bad, but also because this is gonna be kind of a common theme with Hannibal. I don't know a lot about him because he shows up for a total of maybe 10 minutes in the movie, you know? He's not gonna show up a lot, so it's a bit hard to gauge that character. Red Dragon, so... okay. I'm not a huge fan of Anthony Hopkins. I had a hard time with that character. He didn't do anything for me. But like, visually, facially, he's terrifying. He's got the face, he's got the voice for it. But I think he also works because we know how scary he is, because we have that backstory at the beginning of the movie with Hannibal Will and how Will caught Hannibal. But it works because you know how much he's capable of, and you're like, whoa, I don't want to be anywhere near this guy. But someone else had pointed this out as well, but his role and his relationship with Will within this movie, it was much more of a father-son, friends with benefits type relationship. That's how I'd explain it, at least. Where they're here to help each other. And it's much more of a, and here's some advice, kid. Stuff like that. And, like, the way that he was presented is that it's very transparent that he's like that. And on a final note, his cell is very much more him. I really actually like the way they did the mental hospital, where kind of like, to me it looked like an old mine. And I really like how they did it. I think it's got this really weird eeriness to it that works, which, that's hard to capture. I really like it. It's just, it looks so good. Ooh. I'm a sucker for visually pretty movies. But I'm gonna put Red Dragon in, I'm gonna say Bedelia's left leg. I thought he was good. Like, he's a good Hannibal. It's just, he's good, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite. Only because I don't know the scope of that character and the way he plays it. Because all I'm getting from him is 10 minutes of screen time. Hannibal's Hannibal, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Woo! That one's a good one. It's a good one. Oof. So he's to start with this one. Again, I can talk about this one for a while, but that's only because we've seen him for hours and hours of content. He carried an entire show. We know what he's capable of. He's terrifying because we know what he's capable of, what he's done, and why he's there. It's like, whoa, buddy, you will eat me without a second thought, and that's the scariest bit. But, like, you're also not terrified of him at the same time because you know that he has a heart, and then he's like, I care about people, I care about Will and Abigail, like, you know, stuff like that. But it's just a good Hannibal. He's very refined, very elegant. And again, it's that idea of normality. No one suspects anything out of him, despite the whole Hannibal rhymes with cannibal. Okay, kill. Like, you know, no one expects him. And that's what's, like, terrifying about him. But he's good. I like Mads Mikkelsen. It's Hannibal, he also has that look. He has the look. And despite all of his sometimes terrible fashion choices, he's a good Hannibal. He can play the role, and there's a reason he does. But, and I also find it very interesting how they used him in that season. In those last 6 episodes, he's in the mental hospital, but because it's mentioned in the book and in both of those movies that they're like, oh, we could use Hannibal as bait to get Dollarhide to come to us. But with this, they fully lean into it, which would then set up for Wrath of Lion falling off the cliff and killing Dollarhide. Oh my god. It's so good. The song? Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. But, Mads, we're putting you in, I'm gonna put him in Red Dragon Painting. I realize that this is becoming a little obvious, but I obviously have quite a bit of bias to these characters, but only because that's what I know most about, and these are the characters that I've seen the most of, the most that I've been able to draw in. It's because we've built a backstory, we vaguely know more about him, which just makes him better. But that's just my bias. Would you look at that? I didn't take any notes on this because I skipped over it. Oops. So we're gonna go off the book for this one. Francis Dollarhide, our main villain. This poor man has got jet. He is probably the worst done character in the movies. This poor guy. So, Manhunter. I hate this one with a burning passion. There are so many problems with it. So let's just do it. I'll start with something good, actually. Compared to the book, this guy is about the closest we're gonna get to looking like him. He is a 6-foot-tall blonde guy, and that's what he is in the book. But beyond that, nothing's the same. It's, oh my god. 80s shirt, doesn't work. Oh yeah, the tattoo? Okay. His connection to the Red Dragon does not exist. And you'll see this, if you look at box arts and posters of this, you're gonna see him with the tattoo. It never shows up in the movie. The only time it would show up would be that interrogation scene with Freddy, which I'll get into later when I talk about Freddy, but it never shows up except for promotional stuff. I've watched it in Spanish, and it never shows up. And his connection to the dragon, it's non-existent. There's no mention of the poster in any print or anything in his house. There's nothing. There's no book, there's no safe, there's no nothing. It never shows up as a connection. So all we have is this villain who has no motive. We have there's nothing that connects him to the dragon, which is his drive. That's what he's trying to become. There's nothing that tells us this. It's infuriating. He doesn't eat the painting, which is integral to his story and his story and his character arc, because it's at that point that he's in fear of the dragon, because it's making him want to kill Reba. He wants to get rid of it, so he eats it. There's no connection to that. It's so annoying that they've just completely removed his character, basically, and they've just degraded him to a murderer. with a tattoo that doesn't even show up. And the name makes no sense other than the mahjong title that shows up on the tree. And speaking of the tattoo, it's not even that good. It's a Chinese dragon on the front of his chest. There's no connection. Even there's no connection to the painting. Which, again, So, we need to talk about his death. His death is a big factor. In the original book, here's how it goes. He takes Reba to the house. He says, I gotta kill you. I can't let you see this part of me, this part of the dragon. So then he kills himself. He uses a different person in place, and they say, okay, he's dead. And then they realize, oh shit, he's not actually dead. Which at that point, he then goes and tracks down Will, because he has the address from Hannibal, which, oh my god, it's so good. They track down the address because he has it from Hannibal, and goes and tries Will, and he gets killed by Molly, which never shows up. They kill him in his house, which goes against everything. The fact that they killed him in the house is terrible. And the house itself, what is this? What is that? That is not the house. The whole story arc with him is that he grew up in his grandmother's nursing home. He inherited it after his grandmother died. So what the fuck is this? What? They degraded it to an 80s modern house. That is not what it ever was or will ever be. It just... His whole character is terrible. So I feel like we all know where this is going. So, Manhunter Dollarhide, you're going in the soup. It's terrible. Irredeemable. I can't see how they fucked it up that bad. Alright, slightly better note, I guess? Red Dragon. Oh boy. It's still not good. They got Ralph Fiennes for this. He's not right for it. Nothing about him is right. I didn't mention it in the last one. The whole thing with Dollarhide is he has a cleft palate as well as a palate problem. So it impairs his speech and the way he looks at himself. With both of these roles, that's never mentioned. He never struggles with those S's, which is, in the book, every time he mentions it, it's gonna show up as avoiding that S sound. He struggles with it because of his palate. None of that shows up. It's so... In terms of things, this one isn't terrible, but he's not good. He did nothing for me. At least there is connection to the dragon. The house is correct, which is good. We get to see him with the dragon, and that trouble that he has with the dragon, but still, there's no, like, why is he struggling with this? Why? There's no inner voice, which is so important, because the inner voice starts bugging him, and that dragon comes out and calls him terrible, meaning names, and he's like, you're terrible, you have to kill her, you know? But that never shows up in Manhunter or Red Dragon. It's this really weird, like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And, oh god, backstory. It's mentioned in grunts when he's working out, and I'm not kidding. But the backstory is never touched on in any form. Dollarhide's backstory is never mentioned, which sucks, because the chapter, it's a single chapter that is 17 pages. It is the longest chapter within the book, and it is one of the hardest, most uncomfortable chapters to get through. I had to read that, and the fact that it's never touched on, it felt like I read it for nothing, you know? It's rarely mentioned, and it's a terrible backstory. Like, he's been through it, but it's just like, he eats the painting. I'll give you that. It's disappointing that such a great villain had been degraded to such a poor guy, you know? Just nothing about Ralph Fiennes worked either. He doesn't fit the profile. He's not right. None of it was right. And to judge on the tattoo, ew, what? It's in black and white? Hello, there's nothing that screams Red Dragon. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't look right. None of it is right. So, you know where that's going? buddy, Mr. Ralph Fiennes, you are going. And is your social worker in that horse? He's better than Manhunter, but he's still terrible. Hannibal. Oh my god. The most redeeming. Oh, this man is. Oh my god. This man looks like a saint compared to every other character. Oh my god. They had time. It takes 6 hours to build this character. And again, backstory is never mentioned, but other than that, they got everything right. You have that atmosphere. You have that connection. They have the house. They have that connection to the painting. They have it that he has some devotion, and you can see that push in his connection. Even though there's obviously some internal struggle with that dragon, it's more of a abstract interpretation. It's very odd how they do it, but it's still there. You can see that struggle. And not to mention just, he's good. He's so good. And he gets that characteristic and the way that Dollarhide acts right. It's that whole thing of those lisps, the way he talks, he's very refined, he's very, you know, because he doesn't want to talk. There's obviously some drama behind him. And that's actually shown with that character. And it's so good. And it's like, you can see, like, oh, he's scary. He's built. He's terrifying. And the killing scene? Oh my god, it's so good. They actually got that one right. And even though it is with the children, they got it right. It's that fear that's instilled fear of, like, do you know who I am? Like, you know, it's good. It's really fucking good. And that tattoo? That's the best one yet. With the painting on the back? How genius! It's like this perfect show of this ginormous painting that he looks up to when he got it on his body. It's so good! Oh my god. It's the best interpretation of him. And so, for this one, I'm going to put him in Bedelia's left leg. Surprisingly not Red Dragon, because there's still a lot to be left to the imagination. We still don't know a lot about him. We don't know why he does this. We don't know why he is like this. It's mentioned between Reba, but, like, other than that, there's still something about him that, like, he's missing something. But he's really fucking good. Reba McClane! Okay, she's a character that seriously grew on me the more and more I watched her. So, let's just go. Manhunter. The only problem is, oh god, this is a different section, but Manhunter's is that she liked Dollarhide from the get-go. The minute that she started talking to him, there you go. It's, she was smitten. Which, like, I don't, like, it's kinda, but, like, everything's backwards with that. With their whole, like, she's very different in this one. And she's good, but she's not Reba. Reba in the book has always she's always thought of herself as this very confident woman. She's blind, but she can do shit. She shouldn't be looked down upon just because she can't see. And this one, it's not as... She's much more submissive, much more like... And it's missing out on a lot of integral things and of her relationship with Dollarhide. And there's no character development or backstory. When they first kind of meet and they go back to her apartment, she kind of talks about where she's from. And the fact that she was in speech therapy and she helped coach blind and deaf and disabled people get into the job force. But that's never mentioned. So we're like, what's up with her? Why is she here? Like, there's nothing that makes you really care. Not to mention, she almost died by glass, then the fire. So the whole thing at the end is that Dollarhide kidnaps her and takes her back to his house to kill her. And then that's where you get the shotgun scene. But in this, there's no mention of that. Instead, he's gonna try and kill her by glass like the rest of his victims, which makes no sense. And then the house catches fire. How did you mess that up? That's such an integral, because it's like, then at the end, there's no really connection, because there's a whole struggle between her and how she's like, shit. And Will has to kind of tell her, you didn't make a murderer, you helped him. And there's no show of that she has that empathy towards Dollarhide. It's just more of a, I'm in love with him, you know, there's no, like, empathy behind her, and it's not good. It's very lackluster. So for that, we are going to put Miss Reba McLean in, I'm gonna put her in, is your social worker in that horse. It's not good, but you didn't totally fuck up, but it's not good. Red Dragon. Okay, so here's what I'll say about her. She leans a little more into the idea of, I'm blind, but I can do stuff. She mentions those hardships, and we get a little bit of those, that backstory of what she did. And also because she's from Colorado, woo! But, like, she's okay. But again, like, there's really, we get to see a little more we get to see a bit more empathy behind her. We get to see that feeling of, I care about this guy, I want to help him, and I'm like, and it's very touching that she has that feeling that otherwise is not expressed. But it's still, there's something behind it that just, it doesn't work quite as well. But I will say this, I like the person who played her. She was just better, and I was like, oh, I actually like her. Like, she's more of like a, oh, I feel bad for her when something happens to her, when Dollarhide is mean to her. It's like, what? Why are you being mean to her? She doesn't deserve that. But she's fairly decent, you know? So, putting in Hannibal's ponytail. And Hannibal.
What you said? Queen.
Oh my gosh, she's so good. The actress who plays her, oh my god, I was in instant love with her. She's gorgeous, you know? Oh my god, she's perfect. I love her. It's so well done. Even though she's acted as a bit more submissive towards him, but it's kind of what she's like in the book. You see her, she's still in internal struggle, but she doesn't turn down help from Dollarhide because she appreciates him, and she's like, oh shit, she's kind of hot, you know? But like, she's so, oh my god, I love her so much, but she's so good. I think this was the best, oh fuck, she really leans into that idea of, it's like, I'm self-reliant. I can do stuff. I don't need help from people. And she really has that connection with Dollarhide. It's like, I understand you because you can speak, and I want you to continue to speak because I find you interesting. And you really see that development in their relationships, which is so goddamn important. And I just, it's so good. I love her. And oh my god, did I mention, so the whole date scene when Reba goes back to Dollarhide's for the first time, and they go and they make love. Oh my god, they personified her as the woman clothed with the sun. Goddess material. I love that. I just thought it was genius because it's that really, I love that idea of really dark skin with really bright, very glowy patterns, because black skin is so reflective. It created such a dreamlike, gorgeous-esque look to her. It was gorgeous, and I was just like, I love it, that glowiness. It's so good. And like, we get to see the most of her, and we get to see her with that struggle and the way they do it with her. So, are we really surprised with how highly I've talked of her? We're putting her in Red Dragon painting. Because she's just like the perfect But again, that's because we've had 6 hours with her. We've had character development. We've seen her care for Dollarhide, and we've seen her go through those feelings and that empathy that she has and that love. Oh my god. Freddie Lounds. First of all, fuck Freddie Lounds. All my homies hate Freddie Lounds. In any form, gender, whatever, no one likes Freddie. Male or female, hated. Freddie Lounds in Manhunter. I like how he was done. He's far younger, much more skinny and stuff, and he's played by, I can't remember his name for the life of me. I apologize. But he's done it really well. I enjoy the way that they presented him, the way they dressed him. I think he's cool. But again, he doesn't play as big of a role as he did in the books. Like, he's good, and like the actor itself is good, but like I feel like he's underutilized, and he's gonna be underutilized for both of these movies. He's really only there as acting as a way that the FBI can access to the Tattler and access to communication with Dollarhide. I think that's really the only reason it's there, as well as setting up to be the first death of the book. Let's talk about the death scene. I have a lot of problems with this one. It works well, and I think as far as book accuracy goes, it goes well, I think. Freddy dies in a good way. Freddy dies correctly. The interrogation scene is good, but I feel like the delivery, the way that they had done it, it was well done. You have that sense of fear. You have that sense of, oh God, what did I get myself into? Now, but my only problem is the aftermath of the death. The whole bit in the book, which none of the movies address this, I'm just gonna put that out there, is that after Freddy dies, in this movie, it's an immediate, did he say anything? No, we couldn't get anything out of him. Whereas there's an entire conversation with him before he dies of, you son of a bitch, you set me up, I'm the dog. So, the fact that, like, they just skipped over that whole, oh my God, I fucking hate this guy, it makes me so sad, because that was such an interesting bit of that conflict. I'm gonna put Manhunter, Freddy in, is your social worker in that horse? Like, you kind of messed with it, but it's not terrible, but it's still not good. Red Dragon. Okay. So, I'm going to start with the pros for this one. Visually, this is about the closest as we're going to get. In the book, Freddie Lounds he's explained as this short, rat-like man. He's fat, he's pudgy, he's not very attractive. And they nailed that. And frankly, it's so annoying. For the murder scene, I really like the way he did it. He added this kind of like jolly, oh God, kind of that that kind of trickster laugh to it. And I think it was a really good spin on that character and how he acts rather than just having that sense of fear. It added a little character to him, even though he was the first to die and we don't learn much about him, which also sucks, because one of the other grievances I have with both of these Freddys is that in the book, Freddy has a girlfriend. That's a whole thing, and that's why you get a little bit invested in that character, because you know that he has something that he's working for. That he's like, I'll continue to work for the Tattler, and then we're gonna get out of here, we're gonna move, we're gonna live a luxurious life, you and me, and then he gets killed. So it's like, the problem with not including that girlfriend is that you're taking away all of his character. You're just making him this unlikable, which he is, character. But you're not giving him any reason or any motive, which sucks and which makes his death scene a lot less satisfactory. But like, I like the way this one was played. I like the way Red Dragon was played. He added character to this already unlikable character, but added some kind of like, hey, you know, and it worked. It worked really, really well. So, for that, I'm gonna actually put Red Dragon Freddie Lounds into Bedelia's left leg, because I really enjoyed it. I thought they did a really nice interpretation of it. Although they missed a lot of the plot points with him, he's actually pretty good. But again, there's no conversation after he dies. It's an immediate, oops, he's dead. We didn't get anything from him. But like, I think, character-wise, he added a little bit of jauntiness to it. and I really liked it. Freddie Lounds, spelled with F-R-I-D-D-I-E Lounds. First of all, they changed him to a woman. I have nothing against it, but it does change something with this. First of all, she is annoying as hell. She gets on my nerves. She's like an unlikable character. But as for this arc, she plays a fairly big role in this. And she acts as a reporter. She's a person, and she's the person that Will goes to, and he's like, I want you to tell people the story of me and Hannibal, and what's going on here. Like, I think she acts as a reporter, which is the most important part. Even though they don't really rely heavily on her for getting into the Tattler, as far as I remember, I could be wrong, but it's a character that she's good at being bad. She's a good, terrible, annoying character. She's so invasive, and she will do anything for a story. It takes one to catch one, you know? It's like, she's so annoying, you're like, oh, you're terrible, you are so annoying, like, I don't know. But here's where it changes. I don't know if they changed it because Freddy is a woman and the scene would become very uncomfortable otherwise, but for the whole scene, for the whole interview, this is how they get the Tooth Fairy, Red Dragon, to react. They do it by creating a terrible look onto the dragon to get his attention and for him to respond. And in the book, they do it that it's all Will. And then they take a photo with Freddy. In the book and the movies, they do it with Will and Freddy. So then it's Freddy that he goes after first. But with this, Freddy's only acting as the reporter. She is writing down the story. It's him and Chilton that sets him up. Because Chilton is the one who's saying these things because he's another psychiatrist. Whatever. But Will is twisting his words to make it sound worse. So it's in the series, he's going after Chilton. And it's Chilton who dies. Which I think is very interesting, but also it works within the context of that series. But I don't know if it was, the reason why I say it could change it is because also there's the whole thing where Dollarhead has stripped him down. So it would get kind of awkward with Freddy. So I'm happy they changed it so it's like that, but like, it's different in a lot of ways. But that scene has a lot more tension to it. That scene has it that there's risk and he's terrified and he's like, no, don't kill me. And there's a whole scene where Dollarhide needs him to recite this line to give to the FBI that they have to listen to. And it's much more like, oh shit, you know, that really trembly voice. But it works, but I still think Freddy dying was better. I do. But like, in this one, Freddy lives. Again, I'm judging it on this 6 episodes, otherwise I would go into detail about the death in the earlier season. But I don't know. She's really bad, but she doesn't play as big of a role in this. She's good, but she did nothing. So we're gonna put Freddy Lounds in Hannibal's Ponytail. It's not terrible, but you could do better, guys. Do you know Will had a wife? Because I didn't. Molly Graham. She's so very forgettable, which sucks, but like, wow, she does nothing for the story. Sorry, but like, she's just, wow. She doesn't do a lot other than provide some oomph, you know? So, let's just do it. Alright, Manhunter Molly. Of the movies, she's the better half. Because we actually have the most connection to. We actually get to see her for more than when Jack first shows up and comes and talks to Will and talks him into doing this case. But she shows up in Washington or wherever they are and actually gets to see her, and they talk about how they met each other, which I find very interesting that like she's getting far more screen time. It's great that we don't just get her talking to him on the phone, which is how we get to see her in most of the book and most of Red Dragon. But, like, she's just good. And, like, she seems like a motherly figure, and it's something that, it's a more natural representation of the relationship, but it's still, like, very lovey-dovey, which I'll get into in a minute, but, like, yeesh, it's not quite the same. But, like, of the three, she's the one that actually shows up the most. She's the one that contributes the most to Will and is actually there for him, which I fully appreciate. So, I think for that one, we're gonna put her in Bedelia's left leg. It's like, she's pretty good, but it's not like I have really any connection to her, you know? She's okay. She's okay in my book. She's there for Will, and it's like, supportive wife, which is okay. Dragon, this one's gonna be so short. She barely shows up. She shows up at the beginning, and I think they talk on the phone, but, like, she barely has any speaking lines. And they talk when she gets home, when they get home, but, like, other than that, she just doesn't show up. She's there, you know? They don't talk much, but the only upside is she kills Dollarhide. This is the only adaptation you're gonna see where Molly kills Dollarhide, and that's what I'm gonna give it to them. They kill Dollarhide, which is, that's important. That's the whole thing of Molly's the one. She got gun training, so they're gonna go and fulfill it. She doesn't show up otherwise. There's nothing else to comment on. She just doesn't do anything. So for that, I'm gonna put her in as your social worker in that horse, because it's like, you could have done better, but it's not, Hannibal's Molly. She was probably my least favorite. I've actually rewatched a bit of the show, those last 6 episodes. She's surprisingly grown on me. I'm not a huge fan of the actress, but, like, I like the way that they did her, because she talks to Will, and it's a much more natural. Of the 3, it is the most natural relationship. It feels like a real relationship. It's not too lovey-dovey or too disconnected. If you're judging it by real life standards, it's good. But as compared to the books, that's about equal, surprisingly. I think she's, like, fairly good. And they actually build upon her character, which I find very interesting, because otherwise Molly doesn't show up until the FBI shows up to bring them to Jack's cabin, which never shows up, which I think is so dumb. Because it's like, why didn't they? Like, if you know that he has your address, why aren't you doing anything about it? Why didn't you mention it? That's like you know? Because it's like, it puts them in so much fucking danger that they didn't need. Especially in the book, they were never in any danger. They don't do anything. And it does nothing but provide the fact that she can outrun Dollarhide. And that's only, like, the reason it works so well in the book is that they went to Jack's cabin, and then he shows up at Will's door, is because, even though we know Dollarhide has Will's address, it's like, that's a big plot point. They move them to safety, but then it goes on the back burner. So it's like, Dollarhide still has that address, but he's not gonna act upon it until the end as a boom, surprise bitch, I know your address, I'm gonna come and kill you. Which, it messes with it otherwise in the series. So it's like, she never really, she's the wife, but also, she's not the wife anymore by the end of it, because I have a murderous Hannibal husband now that I'm gonna go jump off a cliff with. So in the end, she serves no purpose if the ultimate relationship to end up with at the end of the series was Hannibal and Will. But, like, she's still there because of plot development, which I get, but, like, what do you know? Oh, God. So, this Molly, we're gonna do actually in Hannibal's Ponytail. Much as I bitched about her, she's not terrible. Of the 3 Mollys, she actually, like, contributes something, and I, like, because we get to see her, but there's still a lot of faults to her that I'm like, why would you make her do that? Why would you put her in danger if there never needed it to be there? That's my thing. Let's talk relationships, because that's a surprisingly big part of the storyline, especially Reba and Dollarhide's. So, alright, Manhunter. Oh boy. This was a terrible one to start with. I'll say this also for Red Dragon. Everything's backwards. So the way that Manhunter works is because here's the original order of their days. Dollarhide offers a ride to Reba to her home, and then they go and meet, and they're like, okay. So, and then as far as I know, I could have this backwards, but I'll edit it in if I do. The next part is that happens after their initial meeting. Dollarhide takes Reba to the zoo, where he's going to film nocturnal animals, as well as to get some tape, as well as develop his home films of him killing the families. But the way, so, and then there's a whole scene where she gets to feel a tiger that they're doing surgery on. They're putting a gold cap on the tooth. It's a whole thing where you find Dollarhide's very defensive of Reba, and it's very important. And then finally they go home and they make love. That's about the most PG, ad-friendly way I can explain it. But that's technically the order, and then you get him kidnapping her and trying to kill her. So here's how Manhunter does it. Sex. Sex tries to kill you. That's it. There's no initial meeting at her apartment. It's just immediate. Let's go fuck. That's about their character. That's their relationship. And again, this is gonna be a kind of common theme between these two movies. It's rushed. So goddamn rushed. Because it's hard to develop that relationship of, and that worry of, it's like Dollarhide actually cares for her. Even though, no, there is no mention or showing of struggle that he cares for Reba. There's nothing there that indicates that Dollarhide cares, which sucks. Red Dragon, it's still backwards. Sex, tiger, death. That's how that one goes. But again, but this one does better with how Dollarhide cares for Reba. Because he tries to push her away out of safety and out of her safety, that he's like, I don't want you seeing me like this. I don't want you to be consumed by the dragon. That's a better interpretation of that show in that book, of how he deals with those emotions with Reba, and how he deals with the dragon, saying that you have to kill her, you have to get rid of her, it's a detriment to your becoming. But so in terms of things, that one did probably the best. And for Hannibal, again, it's so good. You actually get to see that growth, that feeling. But you can also see how Reba has helped him. How he's like, I love that woman, but what the fuck am I supposed to do? Because the dragon is gonna make me try to kill her. Like, how do I deal with that? You see that internal struggle with Dollarhide, which is, it's so good. I think it's such a good interpretation of that relationship, and you really get to see the growth between the two, and slowly becoming comfortable with each other, and really that love, which is so important. Oh my god, can you believe it? We're at the final stretch. We are finally on to Will and Molly's relationship. I kind of saved this one for last because it is probably the most in-depth, most misused, misdone relationship. And I say this because in the book, their whole struggle is that as time goes on, as he's home away for longer and longer, the tension grows between Will and Molly. And by the time he gets back, it's terrible. There's such a terrible tension between there. No one wants to talk to each other. And it's just this feeling of, God, I hate, like, there's not that love anymore. And by the end of it, after Will ends up in the hospital, she's just, I can't look at you. Like, how did you, like, it's that feeling of disconnect between the two. And it's like, they fell out of love. That's what I gathered from it. And which sucks. but it's never fully illustrated in any other film. Because, so with Manhunter, what they do is that, like, for as much as I love how they did Molly and made her a very supportive wife, they did it that she's so supportive and that, like, she's there and she's like, God, I love you. And, oh my God, I forgot to mention, the thing with their relationship, here's what I will say. In the book, it is established that, that Will married Molly after her original husband died. So Willie is the stepson. And here's my problem with that. In all of the movies, except for Hannibal, it is established, they make it seem that Willie is his biological son, which he's not, which can create such a major disconnect between him and Molly's family. And by the time they've become out of love, and at the end, they're like, okay, you've been gone for too long, we're still in the cabin, we're going up to see Willie's grandparents, and he's like, fuck, see if I give a damn. They hate me. They hate Will because he killed Garrett Jacob Hobbs. They hate him that he's killed Amanda, and they dislike him, and he just hates, his family hates her, he doesn't much care for them, and that's never translated into anything. Like in Manhunter, they do it that she's the one that's like, oh, when Will gets back, she's like, we should go up and see Willie's grandparents. And he's just like, yeah, I agree with that. As in, they're on good terms, which I think is so stupid, because it's like, that relationship never, it just, I know this is so mean to say that I don't want it to be happy, but it's like, I think it's so weird that they decided to make it such a happy-go-lucky when it's obviously a very tumultuous time for Will, and that he's fallen out of love with his wife, and his wife is so, God, I don't, like, what happened to you, man, you know? So, the way that they did it was so lovey-dovey, and that's my only problem with it. Red Dragon, I can't report on much on that one, because, like, they did jack shit with him, you know? I can't remember much. They were a happy family when they got back, but again, why? Like, why make it a happy ending if you've already gotten this tone of terrible sadness? Why not carry with it, you know? So, in terms of things, Hannibal, it even gets it wrong, because, well, even though you don't have as much communication with Molly, it's actually, surprisingly enough, the most natural. It's like, Molly's like, I love you, and I think you're doing the right thing, and it's subtle things, but it works, and it's like, I get, it kind of ended up like, oops, my husband died, because he ran off with his secret husband, you know, but like, I think, of the three, Hannibal, it's like, that's about the closest we're gonna get to that kind of disconnect, which it kind of happened over the time, and by the time Hannibal shows up and takes him away to his secret mountaintop and they nearly kiss, like, Molly's done. She doesn't exist. Will's not wearing his wedding ring, I don't think. Someone pointed it out. Could be wrong. But it's like, yeah, you know? It's such a hard thing to nail, but that's my last point. Well, folks, we've gotten to the end. So, which means all the tier list is done. I have a photo up here if you want to pause and look at it. I've been at this for the past, I don't know, 3 hours or so. So I appreciate you all so much sticking with me. If you're seeing this portion of the video, thank you. This has been like probably the biggest goddamn project I've done for this, for myself, for a YouTube channel, or for anything. So honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you sitting all the way through it, for as rambly and incoherent as this was. I really enjoyed doing this. It was really fun, as well as getting to put this on, which survived the entire video! Woo! But, wow, I don't even know how to end this. So, yeah, feel free to leave a comment on your thoughts. If there's anything I left out that you wish you mentioned, please comment. I would love to talk. But thank you so much. If you want to see any more of me, you can find me on Instagram at pickle_viv. That's probably where I'm going to be the most active. But I have a Twitter, again, pickle_viv. I don't use it as much, but yeah, thank you so very much for sticking around. Have a wonderful Halloween and rest of the year if I don't see you. And just enjoy your day. Bye!